Hello.
Hello.
I'm Mark. You can all hear me. I go by Cosplay online. This is putting with play in cosplay. So welcome. A little bit about me. I'm a cosplayer who's been cosplaying for about 4 years, and something I take really seriously is actually acting out characters, which is kind of what this panel is about. I specifically have done a lot of theater, and so a lot of that comes from this, and I currently work at the Colorado Renaissance Festival, so a lot of the techniques I know from there kind of translate to cosplay acting. So let's talk about the play of cosplay. The term cosplay originated in Japan back in the 1980s, and it's the amalgamation of both costume and play. That seems pretty obvious, but a lot of people kind of forget that that's where it kind of came from. It came from the idea that people weren't just wearing a costume, they were also playing a character. Now, this is not to cast judgment on anyone who just wears a costume nowadays and calls it a cosplay. The word's evolved, it's fine. It doesn't really matter. But the point is that I'm taking it kind of back to its roots because this is what I think is most enjoyable about cosplay. Since you're here, I assume you're interested as well, so we'll move on. So this is going to be all about preparation. Preparation is everything with this because with any cosplay, you're going to be preparing, but specifically when you're going to be playing a character all day long at a con, you're going to do a ton of preparing. There is a whole bunch of it. And that's because the goals are kind of different with cosplay. When you're playing a character, your goals are a little bit different from when you're just preparing to make a costume. When you're making the costume, you're looking through all the details and looking for all the different things about the character that will make it look right. But when you're gonna be this character, when you're gonna embody them for an extended period of time, you gotta think about some different things. It just takes a bit more thought. So the first off, you gotta consider your venue. Are you doing this at a convention? Are you doing this in a music video? Jenny D is here this weekend. She does a lot of music videos for her cosplay. She's very famous for that. Are you doing it at an opening night, which I've done several of? Are you doing it on the street even? Any of those things are options, and so you got to be aware when you're thinking about which character you're going to pick, where you're going to be doing it, because it has a lot of impact, not just on how fun it's going to be for you to interact with people, but also how recognizable you're going to be, so on and so forth. So the first step, obviously, is choosing your character. Now, this seems like a very easy thing because you're like, well, I love Link, so we're going to be Link. I love Spider-Man, so we're going to be Spider-Man. But you've got so much to consider that you might end up regretting that choice if you don't put some forethought into it. So obviously you have to take into account the theme of the event. If it's an anime con, you're probably not going to be going against Captain America, and that's something to consider. But it gets a lot more nitty-gritty than just themes. Obviously, at an event like here at Pop Culture Con, we don't have a theme per se, so that makes it open. But theme is our first step. You got to think about your energy level. Think about a character like Spider-Man, who's very active, he's very mobile, he's very quippy, and doing Spider-Man is going to take a lot more energy the whole day than it is if you're going to do someone a little more serious, like Zuko, for example. You want to consider how mainstream they are. I realize that we all may love some very obscure fandoms, and that's fine. But when you're playing a character, your goal is to be kind of recognized that you're the character and not you. And that's kind of a hard barrier to get when it's not expected. You show up to a theater production. You understand that these people are not them, they're their characters. But that's because that's kind of the norm that's set out for you. But if you're at a convention, that norm's not really there. So you need to establish that in order for people to realize that you're playing a character and not that you're just being yourself. So how mainstream they are can actually be really important. A quick note about serious characters. I recommend avoiding them. I've done Zuko many times. I love playing him, but he's hard because a serious character is kind of gruff. They're kind of, they're not very nice. And so when you play a character like that, if you're interacting with people at the con, even on the street or wherever, it's hard to be a serious character and still be nice. So you got to kind of balance that out. If you can work that character to make them still nice-ish, even if a little gruff and in character, still that works out. But just consider avoiding them, especially if it's your first time trying to play a character for a long time. Lots of edgy boys out there that we love, but sometimes avoid them. So this is in addition to all the normal considerations. I hate this. So all the normal considerations about a cosplay. How much is it going to cost you? How much time is it going to take? How difficult is it going to be? All of the things that you think about with any normal just wearing it are in addition to what I just told you about. Recognizability and carrying a bag. Real important, make sure you know if you can carry a bag as your character, because it's going to be a lot worse if you think, oh yeah, I'll just be this character. I was Finnick this morning. Be Finnick, skin tight suit and not able to carry anything, your phone, your wallet. So consider that in addition to having to play your character. All right, now as far as actually playing your character, what you're going to be thinking about is your motivation. If you've ever heard anyone give an acting lesson on anything ever, they'll have told you that motivation is everything. And that's kind of cliche, but it's right. You need to know why a character does what they do. What do they want? What do they want out of the convention? Why are they here? These are the things that you've got to know going into a convention as your character, because even though, sure, you're not going to be Link, you're not going to stare in shock as soon as you see a camera every single time. But, it's not a Renaissance festival. But what you are trying to do is give people that sense of you are this character and you're not you every now and then. And so you need to consider the things at a convention that are going to affect that. And what you want as a character. If I'm Link, my goal is to, when I show up to a convention, I'm probably looking for Zelda, because Link does that a lot. And so if I'm ever at a convention as Link, I'll end up searching, I'll kind of walk around the whole time. You're walking at a convention, but I'm looking the whole time I'm looking. And sometimes I'll interact with someone, and I'll be like, have you seen Zelda? And I'll spell her name out. And those are the types of things that you need to be considering when you're playing a character. And think about what are the reactions to the things that they're going to see. A character at a con is going to see a lot of characters they're not used to in their world. I see Doctor Who, Captain Marvel, and so many other characters in the audience here. And how does Link respond to people dressed very differently and things like that? These are the types of things that you're considering when you're choosing a character. Next, we got to briefly talk about character types. So how many of you have heard of typecasting? Probably almost all of you. Yeah. You're all nerds. It's fine. For those that don't know what typecasting is, to be typecast in the theater business is basically to say, oh, that guy's kind of a serious, he's kind of a no-nonsense guy. We'll cast him as the serious, no-nonsense character. Not a lot of acting involved, right? It's really just them being them for the most part, with some differences. And so it's very easy to act, but it doesn't really give the actor a chance to show their range, right? So similarly in cosplay, there are certain things that are going to make your life a lot easier, and that is picking a character that is your body type and gender. You do not have to. It just means you're going to have more work if you go off your body type or off your gender. You can do it. It can be done perfectly. But just bear in mind, it's going to take some more work. You're going to have to consider the amount of work you want to put in order to get the most out of what you're wanting to do. You can totally do it. You just have to be aware it's going to be more work for you if you're doing a character that is not your body type or not your gender. But it can be done. This is all about preparation. This is all about the amount of work you're about to put into this. Next is your mannerisms. Now these are a thing that seem kind of small, but are actually really, really important. So thinking about mannerisms for a second, this is not big acting feat. Hi, I'm Link. These are the things like I'm walking around as Link, and when Link walks, he walks with his shoulders forward. He's typically in a hurry, and he kind of keeps going. He keeps his arms relatively still, but he doesn't move them. And those types of things are the things that make a character. I'll give you a better example in a minute. But the goal with the mannerism specifically is because remember, our goal is to, as quickly as possible, eliminate the idea that you are you. We want to get people to realize you're the character quickly. And so you've got to make every second count, because at a con, you don't talk to people very long, right? It's very brief, very quick. Hey, it's that character sort of thing. So you got to make your seconds count, and having the mannerisms down will do that. The small things are the key to breaking that barrier, getting people to realize you're not you. So talking about mannerisms for a second, this is my friend Jareth. He plays Captain Jack Sparrow at the Colorado Renaissance Festival. And what Jareth is great at, that I'm going to attempt to mimic here, is when he plays Captain Jack, he walks, and he's always in like a straight line, not quite, and he sways. And regardless if he looks like Jack, he could have a pretty bad costume. But if you start doing this, you've got a beard and a hat on, everyone's going to know he's Captain Jack, and he's being Captain Jack, rather than just wearing Captain Jack. And that's the sort of thing you're going for with the mannerisms. Obviously with Jack, it's very obvious. but that helps you translate to other characters that you're going to play as far as their mannerisms go. A big piece of that I was just talking about is walking. The number one thing people are going to see you do at a convention is walk, because it's pretty much the whole convention. So when you're walking, you want to think about how people see you, because that's going to tell people what your character is. It's part of these mannerisms. So think about the motivation once again. If you're a character looking for something, you're not just walking like this, looking at the art, oh that's nice, look at that cosplay over there. You're looking, you're in earnest, you're searching around. If you're playing Bakugo from My Hero, you're cranking, you're stomping around the whole time. You're walking, but it's so effective. It tells people who may not even interact with you that you're playing the character, and that's so great to do at a con. So those types of things are really great. Another thing to think about is, how does your character feel? Every character goes through pretty much every range of emotion, but at the con, you need to decide, how am I going to feel about this? How is my character going to feel about the con? If Link is missing Zelda, he's not feeling very happy, he's feeling very earnest. If he's just there for a good time, that's different. And so those are the types of things that you kind of need to set up for yourself ahead of time, so you can appropriately just walk. Sounds like a little, but it really is a lot. Next is your hands. You'll notice I use my hands a lot in conversation. And the hardest part about acting is knowing what to do with your hands, in my opinion anyway. When you're talking about what you're doing with your hands, obviously most people use their hands quite a bit. They're gesturing, they're talking, they're just using them to express themselves. And they're a big part of conversation, but lots of characters aren't like that. And so you need to, especially the footage of your character, obviously if you're playing a book character, you have more room for discretion here, but if you're watching a character, a TV, movie, watch how your character uses their hands, because it can be really effective when you're trying to get across to someone that you're not just you. Thinking about your hands, a lot of anime characters, they don't move their hands. It's because animators are lazy and just draw them in the same position. They just, I'm just kidding. But they leave their hands down and they don't use them in conversation. And that's okay, but you need to be aware of that. If you're playing an anime character, don't start moving your hands whenever you're talking with someone. Don't start gesturing and everything. Kind of keep them down, because that'll make an impression on someone who's watching you when they see that you're not using your hands on purpose. It's all of these things are just going back to breaking that barrier, because as quickly as possible, we want people to know that you're not you. Now, the most obvious way to do this is with your voice. Now, voices are difficult. I'm not going to attempt Zuko, so don't ask me to. Voices are something that you may get, you may not. And it's often the hardest part of a cosplay. It can be very difficult to nail the voice. If you can, it's great. If you can't, don't bother. Please know you do not have to do the voice. Take it as a personal plea. I would much rather you not do the voice if you can't do the voice. So, a little judgmental from me maybe, but the point is that you really should only do the voice if you're confident that you can do it, because it often sounds a lot worse playing the character if you're not, or if you're doing the voice, than if you just didn't bother. So be honest with yourself and kind of figure out, because it will make or break your cosplay if you attempt to do it. If you don't attempt to do it, that doesn't mean anything. It's all fine. Lots of people can't do the voices, but most of us aren't voice actors. And so instead of doing the voice, they just kind of don't, use their own voice, maybe tone it down a little bit, and that works so much better, especially if you couple it with everything we've been talking about. It's all about a balancing act. Like I said, you need to be honest with yourself about it. And if you can't get it, do not sweat it. You do not have to do the voice. Just cut your losses if you have to. Don't feel compelled to do the voice just because you're doing a character, even a character with a distinctive voice like Zuko. Just move on and work on everything else, because I promise that will make a bigger impression than you trying and failing to get a voice right. It's a big decision to make, I realize, but remember, you don't have to. You can. And one last thing, I know I'm giving voices a bad rap here, but it also imposes limits. So we've already talked about your characters, right? The choices of characters you like in a fandom is here. The choices of characters that you feel the ability to make the outfit for is here. The choices of characters that you feel the ability to make the outfit for that also fits the theme of the event you're going to is here. And the characters that you, if you want to make it easy on yourself, fit your body type more or less, are here. You're down to this, and you're going to take, oh, I have to do the voice. Well, you're limiting it yourself to here. So it really is just one more factor that isn't necessary. So please don't feel pressured by anyone that you have to do the voice. You can, and it's great if you can, but you certainly don't have to. But if you're going to work with voices, you're going to start with the pitch. The pitch is how high or low your voice is. You're talking about, I have a pretty high voice for a guy. So I typically stick with characters, Cat Noir, characters that don't speak like Link, whose voices I do a little better. Because the pitch is hard to work with. You're pretty much stuck with the pitch you've got. And so even though you can alter your voice here and there, your voice is a limit, and that pitch is kind of the set bracket you're able to work with. So I find it easiest to try and pick someone with a pretty similar pitch. Again, you can work with it, but I certainly don't end up playing characters like McCree, because that baritone I just can't get. Like I said, it can be changed somewhat. So a character that I am able to do is Ford. Any critters out here? Woo! Okay, a few. So when I do Ford, which I'll be doing tomorrow, I can kind of get my voice down a little bit. But Travis is way lower voice than I do. And so even though I've got the accent down, it's kind of hard for me to get to that deeper pitch. And so I typically just stick with the accent and call it good. And it still sounds good, especially if you don't hear me talking right next to Travis. But it's something that you kind of need to consider when you're discussing, when you're thinking about doing a voice for a character. The second aspect of a voice is tone. Your tone is talking about how the inflections of someone's voice. So when I talk to you, I end my inflections kind of downward, and that's a pretty American thing. Most Americans, when they talk, end the sentence on the kind of lower level of the pitch, but it can vary a lot, and the character you're playing can determine that. And what's great about tone is, unlike pitch, which you're stuck with, tone you can work with all the live long day. When you're looking at your tone, you're thinking about how does this character end their sentences? How do they start their sentences? Are they excited? Are they pretty monotone? Those types of things, it's how a character speaks, and those are the things that you can work with very easily and really get across the character, even if your pitch is off. So what a lot of advice I give to people who are wanting to do voices is, instead of worrying so much about the pitch, if you want to do the voice but you can't get it, focus on the tone, because the tone is really going to give you much more of an advantage in sounding like a character, even if your pitch is wrong. Watch a character to figure out their tone. Watch how they speak. Watch when they say certain things and how. Those types of things are the key to getting that tone. Think about if your character's excited, if they're like Zuko and they're more even-tempered, towards season 3, and how do their emotions affect their tone? When they're happy, their tone's going to be different. All those different things are things you're going to consider with tone. The third aspect of your voice is the rhythm. And the rhythm is your cadence. It's how many words come out at once, basically. I have a very fast rhythm when I speak. And so it's that sort of thing that you've got to consider when you're being a character. Because if you're playing a character that has a different rhythm than you, then you got to figure out how to vary your rhythm. And varying your rhythm is something that you can do very easily just by practice. It's easy to get into the habit, it's hard to get into the habit of it because you talk a certain way your whole life. But if you can practice varying your rhythm, you'll find a very effective way to mimic a character. This is analogous to mannerisms, like we talked about. Mannerisms is with your body. Your rhythm's with just the frequency of how you speak. When you speak like a character, even if it's in your normal tone, even if it's in your normal pitch, you're going to attract a lot more attention from it because people are going to realize that you're probably not speaking the way that an ordinary person speaks, and that's because we're all doing fictional characters. Okay, it seems small, I realize that, but trust me, it really is important. And if I were to tell you to work on anything when mimicking a character's voice, I would say pick your rhythm first, because the rhythm is really something that can be very impactful in, again, breaking that barrier that we're trying to break. I already told you all that. So, think about Captain Jack Sparrow again. When Captain Jack Sparrow speaks, he says, "No, you want you to find this, because the finding of this finds you, incapacitorily finding and or locating the discovery of detecting of a way, saving a $1 what's-a-face." Savvy. And notice I didn't change my pitch at all. I didn't change my tone at all. But Captain Jack, that alone right there gives you that difference in rhythm, and that's very effective. Now, a blessing and a curse is accents. Accents of the character can be really helpful and really terrible. So the thing about an accent that's great is that it hides your voice. When I do Ford, I have that southern accent down, and so instead of, you're not really focused on the fact that my voice isn't low enough, right? It helps cover it up, which is great. Unfortunately, the downside of an accent is you have to learn to totally pronounce things different ways. You've got different words that you've never said that way before. Some characters have sounds that we don't even have the sound in English for, and so it's hard to mimic an accent because of that. So it's kind of a toss-up. Accents can be really great and really less great. So we got two ways to learn an accent, though. The hard way. So the hard way is to find videos of people from the region. If you're trying to learn an English accent, go watch a bunch of BBC and sit and watch and listen to how they speak. You really can nail it slowly, but it takes time. Find someone with the accent to coach you. A lot harder here stateside, but it's doable. Repeat everything your character says. This is something I do all the time, which is when I watch TV or movies and I watch a character that I'm like, I'd like to play them, I will repeat things they say to themselves or to other characters. I'll just repeat their lines over and over. And then I'll listen to it again and see how mine compares. It's a really good way to nail an accent because you're specifically nailing it the way your character says it. So talk about Scotland for a second. I visited Scotland a couple of years ago. This is Finlay MacDonald. He was my bagpiping teacher and the most Scottish man you'll ever meet. And the thing about Finlay is he would always lecture to us during our classes that weren't like privately taught. And so under my breath during his lectures, I would repeat everything he said. And so in order to nail that Scottish accent, just worked on it for a long time, repeating all the piping stuff he was telling me under my breath so I couldn't hear him, of course. And then I worked on it for a while, and now I've got a pretty good Scottish accent. And that's because I just practiced over and over for a while. So I may not sound like every Scotsman, but I certainly sound like Finlay MacDonald. And it works out pretty well. So that sort of thing, this is the hard way. This is a way to learn an accent. I promise you, if you do all four of these things consistently for a couple months, you will nail it eventually. Or there's the easy way. Cosplayers don't have any time in their hands, as I'm sure you all know. So the easier way to do this is a way that works pretty well. Obviously, it's not perfect. So listen to the character again. I know I just said this, but listen to the character's lines. Hear what they say. Learn to say about 2 to 3 lines of theirs perfectly. The thing about con, especially, is that when you're at a con, you're not really concerned about too much talking because you're gonna see people for 30 seconds tops. So learning to say 2 to 3 lines, especially iconic ones that they say, can be just enough. And then take those lines, think about the vowel sounds specifically, and apply those to other words if you're comfortable with it. It's not a foolproof way because you're going to encounter unusual words that you're like, oh, I have no idea how to say that in the accent. But it can be applied pretty well, and it's a good 2-week method of learning an accent pretty quickly instead of several months. Okay, we are done with step 1. Step 1 is choosing your character, right?
Oh, yeah.
We have worked on choosing the character. We've worked on what we're talking about, what we're playing a character. I promise I will stay within my time limit. But we've talked about you're choosing the character, you're preparing to be this character. Now, step 2 is more about when you're at the convention. This is all the info you need to choose a character, prepare for the event, and I promise it is all downhill from here. That is all the hard stuff. Okay? So interacting at a convention. So bear with me for a second. Picture yourself. You're at the con, you're in costume, and you see people all around. There's art, there's celebrities, there's panels, there's all this great stuff, and you have no idea what to do, right? Because I haven't told you yet. So when you're at the con doing that, your main goal, first and foremost, is enjoy yourself. Don't kill yourself doing this like I do. Just make yourself have fun. That's the goal of this, right? And you want to help others do the same. That's why we play our characters, right? We enjoy playing our characters, but if no one sees us playing our characters, there's not a whole lot of point. if people see you, they appreciate it, and so you've made their day as well as your own. So that's your goal when you get to the convention, right? All right, so your goal is to make interactions. This is where Ren Fair comes in. Your goal is to interact with people quickly, funnily maybe, get them to know as quickly as possible that you are not your character and appreciate that, and then move on. This can be still a little daunting, even I'm not great at it still, but here is the method I approach it with. You've got 3 built-in interactions that are so easy that you will have to do hardly anything to do these, okay? If you can do these, you'll be fine. Number 1 is people call you out. People call you out all the time, right? If you're dressed up, it's the doctor. It's, I don't know, characters are failing me. It's Ellie. You see those characters, you call them, people call you out all the time, right? Even if they don't want a photo, they're like, oh, it's them. And that's the perfect time to interact with someone. If you're not, busy or you're not running by very quickly, turn around, say hello. Because if someone calls your name, they're excited about it. So they're a perfect mark for someone to interact with. So say hello in character. Be in character and be like, hello, I'm Link, or in my case, right? And do those sorts of things. That can make a very easy impression very quickly. Again, our goal is to break this barrier. So answer as your character. They might say they like your cosplay. Probably you will say something to the effect of, oh, these are my normal clothes, or oh, this is my superhero fighting outfit, something like that. But the point is, answer their questions, be in character, and just let it end when it ends. They'll probably say that. They'll probably say, well, thanks for, saying hello to me, and then they'll move on, and that's okay. That's all you need. If you get them to realize you're in character during that time, you've succeeded, and that's all that matters. It's very short, very sweet, but it can be really great. Second, and off of that, is people that want a photo. Typically, if someone does call you out, they're like, can I get a picture of your cosplay? Now, assuming you're okay with it, say yes. And, you'll probably get plenty of these. But again, even when you say yes, respond in character. When someone asks Finnick, for example, for a photo, Finnick's very arrogant, and he knows he's beautiful. So when Finnick gets when someone says, Finnick, can I have your photo? He's like, well, of course. And so that's the sort of thing you got to figure out. How would your character respond to being asked to have a photo of them? Would they be happy, perplexed? Figure that sort of thing out, because that's going to really help. Again, we're breaking that barrier. Once again, you'll probably have a brief conversation. They'll say thank you. But just thinking again about how the character's going to feel, how they're going to act, and you will be just fine. All right, step 3, or not step 3, we're still on step 2. There are only 2 steps in this plan, so it's okay. Number 3 is talking about cosplayers in the same fandom. This is a bit of a step up, but it can be done. So the thing about cosplayers in the same fandom, this takes some of your own initiative though, so it's a little scarier. So think about it though. Find someone dressed in the same fandom. Look around. If you're dressed as the Doctor, go find someone dressed as one of your companions, right? Sorry, I keep doing the Doctor because you're right here. If you're Spider-Man, go ahead and find one of your villains maybe. Find someone who's dressed as a character from your fandom. Now, bear in mind, they are probably not playing their character, because it's not very common nowadays to play their character, hence this panel. So bear that in mind and take it slow, but work with them here. So say hello in character. If you're Bakugo and you see a Deku run around, you're going to be like, Deku! And you're not going to be happy. You're probably not even going to be stopping. You'll probably just walk by and say that, but say hello. Say hello, and don't be a jerk. If you guys are mortal enemies as characters, you honestly can't, suddenly be like, I'm going to kill you right here and now, because that would be awkward, and security wouldn't like that. But what you do need to do is say hello in some manner that gets the character across. If you are mortal enemies, if you're Voldemort and Harry Potter, and you're Voldemort and you see Harry's standing over there, be like, I'll get you at the end of the school year, Potter. And something like that, something that makes it very, fun, but also in character, right? And it's that easy. All you have to do is maintain in character. Think about how your character would respond to the things that they say. If they figure out quickly that you're not in character, which is our goal, they'll hopefully kind of go in character as well. Now, they haven't put any of this prep work that you have. They haven't worked on it nearly as long as you have. So you can't expect them to be like, down pat, oh, now they go right into character. But they'll try their best frequently. I've experienced this, and it really ends up as a fun time. That really is all there is to it. There are some other pieces I can tell you, piece of advice that we'll get to, but if you can nail those 3 interactions, you're good. If you really get to that 3rd level, you're really on your way to becoming great at just playing your characters all the time. Convention play especially is a very different form of play than in theater, than at any of the other venues I listed, and so it's really something a little difficult to master, but if you can get those 3, you're doing great. It all comes down to what you are comfortable with and creativity. Be creative, figure out what you're doing, how you're going to respond, you'll be fine. But if you're not like totally ready to go out there and play your character right now, I have some more helpful hints that I've kind of learned over the years. So let's talk about inter-fandom acting for a second. This can be the most fun because we all headcanon that our characters are going to meet each other one day, right? Have any of you all seen this meme? A friend and I did that in Dallas. The whole point is that you need to take this at your pace, but it can be really great if you get it. We all headcanon them meeting each other. This is your chance. You're at a con with hundreds of characters from hundreds of fandoms. You can meet any of them as any character you want. It's really great. This is your chance. But the thing is, it is a little harder because they're probably not playing their character as we established. B, they haven't put the prep in you have, so even if they know you're playing your character, they may not know how to respond. C, you might not be from a fandom they're from, which means that they have no idea who you are. That's where it gets really weird. So it's a little riskier, but it's doable. It just takes more work, more practice. We have some other considerations though. First off is cosplay quips. Now, these are things I've found super helpful at a con because, like I said, at a con, you're getting like 30 seconds, right, with someone, and that's a long time. At a con, people are moving places; it's very busy, so it's unlikely you'll even get that long. Cosplay quips can be very helpful in getting a quick interaction that's very easy, makes their day, and you aren't lost for words ever. Because when someone calls you out, "Hey, doctor," you're like, "Hi." It's very hard to respond off the cuff sometimes, right? Sometimes you're ready, but frequently you're not, especially in such a distracting environment. So when you're responding to a character, it can be really great to have some canned phrases ahead of time. I have Zuko on this picture because a very common thing that gets yelled out at Zuko when you're at a con is, "Your scar's on the wrong side!" To which I promptly respond, "The scar's not on the wrong side!" Now that's obviously from the show, so it's a very built-in one for me because I didn't even have to come up with it. But thinking about those types of phrases to just have at your ready whenever you hear someone call you out is really great. And to think about that, what are the things your character says a lot? Think about lines that they say quite frequently. Think about what are you likely to hear at a con? If someone's walking by you, what are the phrases you end up hearing? "Doctor Who?" Those phrases that you're going to get someone saying it. So be ready for those and have good responses, just 2 or 3, maybe 4. Just at the ready that you've memorized, that you're ready to go with, because they can really save you in a tight spot, and often they end up being the best interactions anyway. It's like having something like an NPC, you're just spitting out random lines of dialogue, but it actually really works well at a con. So examples of this, I already talked about Zuko, but Cat Noir, I was at a con recently and I had forgotten to come up with cosplay quips, and I only realized that when people started calling Cat Noir and saying things to me, and I was like, oh, I have nothing to say. And so quickly I had to think about, all right, what's something Cat Noir would say if someone asked him his picture? And so I quickly started reverting to Milady and saying like, oh, well, thank you, and things like that, Cat Noir would do that make sort of sense, right? All right, so another thing you need to consider, I know, a lot of things to consider, is consideration. It sounds like a tautology, but it's not. Cosplay is not consent. This goes for physical touch, obviously. This goes for photos, but this really goes for playing with people. I'll be honest, playing a character is a risk. You don't know how people are going to respond. You don't know if they're comfortable with this. You don't know anything because you're approaching strangers, right? And unless they are clearly in character, if they're in character, you're probably safe. But if they're not in character, it's a significant risk you're taking. It's well worth the risk, I think, in general, because most people at a con are very amenable to it. But just be aware that you have a responsibility to make sure you're not ruining anyone's day. So when you interact with someone, how are they taking it? Especially if you're playing a particularly flirtatious character, you need to think about, or you need to read the scene and think, all right, do they look like they're having fun? Are they enjoying this? Are they comfortable with this? Are they looking like they would like to leave now? You need to, that's on you. That is your responsibility to figure that out. And if things go south, you've got to end the interaction. You don't have to break character, but you need to leave because you're ruining their day. They've paid to be here just like you have, and their day is more important than your day in this situation because you're taking the initiative. So it's your job to make sure that you're not messing something up for them. Because what it comes down to is we're all at a con to enjoy ourselves, and if someone's not enjoying an interaction, they're not enjoying you interacting with them, you need to stop. And so if that worries you, I know that's very doom and gloom, but again, people at cons are very amenable most of the time. But if that concerns you, just play it safe. You can just talk to them out of character first. Come up to them. You see a character that, same fandom, and you're like, hello, I love that you're this character. This is great. Can we do like sort of an interaction? Almost everyone is so down for that. They think it's very exciting. And sure, the audience changes. It's no longer about you and them. Now it kind of becomes about the people around you, but that's okay. Some of the best interactions I've ever seen were obviously pre-scripted, but I saw people interacting with each other and who were around watching it happen, and it was a really cool improv scenes, and that's really neat. But just be aware that playing it safe, totally fine. If you're comfortable with stepping it up, as long as you are responsible, it's also fine. But if you're worried, you can always play it safe, and it works out great. And that leads us to, you gotta know when to end it. And I'm not talking about this presentation yet. I have 20 minutes. But you need to know when to end an interaction. Because, like I said, these are 30 seconds tops. You need to know when the scene is over. When you're playing with a character, you two, kind of get at it, and then it's like, okay, that was fun. You need to go. You may be having more fun than they are. Maybe they were just indulging you, and as soon as their body language starts to change from, I'm enjoying this, to, oh, okay, I have stuff to do, thanks, I'm late to this panel, let's go. You need to, realize that, kind of learn to read the scene and just end it. It's totally fine. But the best interactions are quick anyway, especially at a con. Like I said, you're taking up someone's part of their time. This is their day too, just like it's yours. And so, they're being nice by allowing you to be part of it, but you don't want to take up a whole bunch of their time. So just read the scene, end it naturally when possible, but you got to know when it's over, right? When things go on too long, it tends to get awkward. Now, let's talk about keeping it up for a second. Most people do not play a character as long as I do, and that's fine. I tend to play my characters throughout almost the whole con, and that's just because it's something I enjoy. But you don't have to. You do not have to stay in character all day long. It is exhausting. So if you don't want to, please don't feel pressured to have to. It's not like you're playing wrong if you're not doing your character the whole time. But if you're crazy like I am and want to do it, here's what I can tell you. Keep interacting. Interacting is the way you have fun and you keep your energy going at a con. Because the more people you talk with, the more you do things with people, the more fun you're going to have. And that's going to encourage you to stay in character and keep going. Don't just walk around. If you just walk around, you're not paying, you're in character, you're serious, you're thinking about it. And you're going in character. Let's do Captain Jack, You're doing it, you're enjoying yourself. But no, you're not interacting with anyone, you're just going to get tired of it very quickly. And it's just not as fun. So make sure that you keep interacting. I know it can be a little scary, but you can do it. Just keep it up because I promise you'll have a much better day. And secondly, take care of yourself. Now, cosplayers are really bad about this. But being in character doesn't mean you can't sit down. Being in character doesn't mean you can't eat. Being in character does not mean you can't go to the bathroom. Even if you're like, nope, not breaking character. I'm not breaking character the whole day. We're going to do 12 hours, Link, all today. That's it. That's fine. Link has to eat too. We've seen him cook food in his pan. It may be only 6 seconds, but he does it. So, make sure that you are taking care of yourselves. Rest. Take a moment. Take a break. You can still be in character. And quite frankly, even though the illusion is great, you're more important than it is. And so just take care of yourselves if you're playing in character. Already wearing a heavy cosplay, a big cosplay. I saw you on the Tauntaun, and it's awesome. that can't have been fun to wear all day, right? That sort of thing is already exhausting, and you are not playing character, you're just you. You're relaxed, you're having a good time. That's already pretty exhausting, right? So being in character and doing that is even more exhausting. All right, now the last thing, this goes for playing cosplay and not playing cosplay, that I really think is important, that I always try to do with my cosplays, is what I call that little something extra. This is just something that, even if I'm not planning on playing a character, I always, or mostly always, try to have one more thing that I do as my character. And this is because I'm an attention hog. And but listen for a second. You're probably one of many characters at the convention, right? How many people saw about 20 Dekus today? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like lots of people dressed as Deku. Lots of people dressed as, you know, the Doctor. Lots of people dressed as Spider-Man. Lots of people dressed as lots of people, and that's okay. It's great. And playing the character does help you stand out, for sure. If people know you're playing the character, they're going to be like, they're not going to look at that Spider-Man and be like, he's walking. They're going to look at the one that's doing flips and like, oh wow, that's so cool, it's Spider-Man. You know, and he's like, he's Spider-Man. You know, that's a cool thing. And so that helps, but for one thing, but I always try, in addition to that, to find just one more thing. To just find one little something. It's because you'll find cosplayers at varying levels. At every con you go to, I promise you will find a cosplayer more experienced than you and one less experienced than you, and that's fine. It is very rare, though, some people can do it, that you're going to show up to a con and be the best in show. If you're that talented, good on you. I'm not. So instead of trying to be the best person there, because you know you're here to have fun, it's not a competition. But instead, when I show up to a con, I'm looking to be remembered. So I'm not trying to be the best dressed. I'm just trying to be the only one who did blank. You know, I'm not the only Link at the con. I saw 4 on my way in. But I am the only Link, hopefully, that does sign language and plays as Ocarina. Not necessarily the only one, but I try to find that something extra that is not necessarily uniquely mine, but is mostly mine. And so you gotta find something that only you did. And the reason this is great is because, I forget what order my slides are in. So think about Link for a second. You know, I play Ocarina, and that's my something extra. As Zuko, I did Firebending. There's no sound, so. I was the only Zuko that did Firebending that year. And am I uniquely the only person who has ever thought, let's do a Firebending prop? Certainly not. I got that from another cosplayer online who did Firebending for a different outfit, right? So it's never unique, but it's something that only I did at that con, and it was memorable. And that's the goal. Your goal is to be remembered by someone. Don't be remembered as the best Link at the con. Don't be remembered as the best dressed at the con. Just be remembered as that one Link. You see him playing the Ocarina, that was really cool. That sort of thing is what you want. As one more example, I can't remember how many more examples I have. As Keith, this isn't a play aspect, this is just a building aspect. But I was like, when I do Voltron, there's probably going to be a lot of people dressed as Voltron. It's very popular. So instead of doing that, I was like, what's something no one will think to do? And I thought, oh, I'll do lights. No one's going to have lights in their suits. That's pretty cool. It was a pain, but it's that sort of thing. It's a small thing that is just a nice touch that's really neat. It keeps you memorable. It keeps you from just another cosplayer to, that was really cool. I remember that con where we saw that Zuko Firebending. That's really neat. That was just a really cool idea. It's not something you're not gonna make someone's life. You know, they're not gonna remember you forever. But if they remember you a year later and they're like, that was a really neat cosplay because you added just one thing extra that was kind of uniquely yours, you've made a good impression, and that's a great thing. So that's really all I've got. Thanks for coming. A little preview of our cosplay tomorrow. Several friends and I are doing Critical Role, so for you critters out there, look forward to that, and you can come find me. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them now. I've got 5 minutes left, so bring it on.
I don't know if you're interested in Raiders in Fandom.
I'm not, but I do.
Well, I'm going to be cosplaying a character tomorrow, and I'm just wondering, like, she's sort of just like, I don't know, she just sort of is like kind of antisocial. Any tips for that? This is my first con.
Sure thing. So, like I was talking about serious characters earlier, you know how it's kind of hard. You kind of got to massage that into not as mean, not as antisocial. So think of a reason your character would interact with someone, right? So yeah, you know, she typically doesn't, right? So she's very antisocial, doesn't talk to people. Think of a reason she would interact with someone, and use that, and that's how you can start interacting with people. Watch your character. Always watch your character. There is no finer material than the source material. Yeah.
Have you seen the game Injustice 2?
I barely, but yes.
So one of the characters I'm going to be cosplaying tomorrow is Enchantress, and she's very slow, but she's very like a sort of maniacal character. Like I have sort of how she walks, but as in like tone and mannerisms. Basically, the only interaction she has is that she threatens to devour someone's soul. So like how?
So go around, find the members of the Justice League, and tell them you're devouring their soul later. Do it nicely, but you know, go up to them and be like, you know, I'll get you later, and you know that sort of thing at the con. Even if it's that quick, that's really neat. And if it helps with the serious characters, like I had a whole slide on it because it's kind of a difficult topic. But if you're worried about how you're going to interact as a serious character, great way to do it is to pre-script it and to go up to someone and be like, hey, can we do this interaction for the people around? I think it'd be really cool. That's the sort of thing that makes it much easier because serious characters are kind of a difficult balancing point. Anyone else? Yeah.
Yeah, something I do when I do like Fallout cosplays and stuff is I have a Bluetooth speaker I hide in a pouch and then I play like recorded Fallout radio station as I walk around.
See, that's so cool. That's a really great extra, you know, that something extra, that extra little something. You know?
It kind of like something that turns heads and they're like, oh, where's that music coming from? And then they see that and they're like, oh.
That's what I love to do. That's my favorite thing about cosplay is finding that one little thing that just makes me maybe a little bit more memorable. Anyone else? Yeah.
So you talked a lot about very serious characters. What about the exact opposite? Very, very bubbly characters and toning the bubbly down.
So, are you a critter?
Yes.
Think about Jester for a second. So Jester, very bubbly, very like, oh, hi, how are you? I'm Jester Lavore. I come from the Quadratus, and she's very, very aggressively social, right? Is kind of what you're talking about. And the opposite key with a character that's aggressively social is you need to kind of step it back a little bit. If you're going to interact with someone, they're probably down for it, remember, like I said, but just keep in mind the consideration that maybe they're not, and approach it likewise. So instead of immediately running to them and being like, hi, just, maybe walk quickly up to them and be like, oh, it's, you see Ford, and you're like, oh, Ford, how are you? And start there, read their face, see if they're uncomfortable, and if they are uncomfortable, it'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, never mind. But if they're comfortable with it, it'll work itself out pretty well. You just need to not be so aggressive that you're catching people too off their guard. Anyone? Yeah.
This is kind of like off topic, but like still the cosplay realm.
Bring it on.
How do you find people who you cosplay with who are passionate about cosplaying? Just like
Make
That's the
friends with
question
nerds.
of my life. Nerds tend to attract other nerds. And so what it comes down to is that when you're at conventions like this, if you can talk to people, interacting with people is a great way to do it. That's how, so I met these really great cosplayers down in Dallas when I was doing Zuko, who talked about that they wanted to do a full Avatar Last Airbender cosplay. And I was like, well, I'll do Zuko with you guys if you like it. So it's that sort of thing, just, connections in life, not just in cosplay, but in jobs and everything else are everything. And it's ridiculously hard and I hate it. So I get where you're coming from. But just talk to people and keep cosplaying, because the more people that see it, the more people you're going to meet that are passionate about it, the more likely you're going to find more people to do it with. Because getting a group that big together alone, that's what, 7 people, 6 people? I can't count. That's 6 people. It will be 7 tomorrow. We have about 2. Getting that size group together, impossible. It's amazing that it even happened. I have time for one more. Anyone else? Yes. Audrey.
Do you have any advice for characters, like when I'm playing a Carol who's very kind of a, sort of a subdued character? She doesn't have a whole lot of really distinctive mannerisms besides being a person.
So watch her. Watch how she walks. Those are important. And like I was telling you over here, it's really important to have a reason you talk to someone. You're not going to just talk to someone, you are talking to someone just for the interaction. But when you talk with someone, instead of just doing it for the interaction, talk with someone because you have a purpose. If you see Nick Fury, you've probably got a good reason to talk to him, right? And so come up with a reason to talk to him. Why do you need to get Fury's attention? You're this person. You guys are those people. So think about why you need that person. So that's all the time I've got, guys. I have cards up here if you have more questions. Want to message me on Instagram or whatever.